sky above Lagos was grey the day they buried Tolu. Not the dramatic kind of grey that promised rain, but the dull, tired grey that seemed to press down on the city like a heavy hand. Even the usual chaos of yucca traffic outside the cemetery felt quieter, as if the world itself understood that something was terribly wrong. Ada stood near the back of the crowd, clutching her handbag tightly. Her best friend's coffin lay at the front, surrounded by white flowers that smelled too sweet for a day like this. 3 days ago, Tolu had been alive. 3 days ago, they had been laughing together, on the phone about something. Stupid something about a co-worker who kept microwaving fish in the office kitchen. Now she was gone. Ada turned slightly. It was Colonel, one of Tolu's cousins. His eyes were red, but something about his expression felt strange, almost forced. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. Ada nodded. Of course. The pastor's voice droned on in the background, talking about life, about heaven, about how death was only a transition. But Ada barely heard him, because something about this whole situation didn't make sense. Tolu had died in a car accident. That was what everyone said. But Ada had known Tolu for 9 years, and Tolu hated driving at night. Yet somehow she had been on the road at 2 a.m. alone. Ada's phone vibrated inside her bag. She ignored it. Another vibration followed, then another. Annoyed, she pulled the phone out, expecting a spam message or one of the many relatives asking for funeral directions. But the notification froze her. One new voice message from Tolu. Ada blinked. Her heart skipped. That was impossible. She stared at the screen. The message timestamp read 2:13 a.m. Her fingers suddenly felt cold. No one else noticed her panic. The pastor was still speaking. People were still crying. And the coffin still sat in front of them like a quiet accusation. Slowly Ada pressed play. The voice that filled her ear made her knees weak. It was Tolu. Her voice was shaking, whispering, like she was hiding. "Ada, listen to me carefully." Static crackled behind her words. "If you're hearing this, something has already happened to me." Ada's breath caught in her throat. "I didn't know who else to send this to." A sound interrupted the message. Footsteps. Tolu's breathing became faster. "Ada, don't trust them." The recording suddenly cut. Ada stood frozen. The funeral continued around her. But the world had shifted, because the message had come 2 hours after the time of the accident. And because of the last thing Tolu had said. Don't trust them. But who was them? Ada didn't sleep that night. She replayed the voice note at least 30 times. Each time she listened more carefully. Each time the fear grew. The background noise sounded like traffic. Maybe a roadside. But there was something else. Comma. Voices. Faint. Male voices. Talking. She couldn't make out the words. But they were there. At exactly 1:47 a.m., another notification appeared. Ada nearly dropped her phone. Another voice message. From Tolu. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. She pressed play immediately. This time the recording started with heavy breathing. "Ada, I don't have much time." Her voice sounded weaker now. "If anything happens to me." It wasn't an accident. Ada sat upright in bed. I think they know I saw them. A car door slammed somewhere in the distance. Then Tolu whispered something that made Ada's blood run cold. It's the people from the company. The recording ended abruptly. Ada stared at the screen. The company. Tolu worked for Westcore Logistics, one of the fastest growing shipping companies in Lagos. But what could she have possibly seen? And why would someone kill her for it? Ada suddenly realized something even more terrifying. If Tolu had sent these messages to her, that meant she was the only person who knew the truth. And whoever they were, they might realize that soon. The next morning, Ada found herself standing outside Westcore Logistics headquarters. The building was tall and modern, its glass windows reflecting the chaotic Lagos streets below. It looked normal, too normal. Inside, the receptionist greeted her politely. "Good morning. How may I help you?" "I'm looking for information about Tolu Ademi," Ada said. The woman's smile faded slightly. "Oh, the accident. Yes. Management has already handled all official statements." Ada leaned forward. "I'm her best friend." Something in her tone made the receptionist uncomfortable. "Perhaps you should speak with Mr. Dyke." "Who's that?" "Our operations manager." Ada waited. 10 minutes later, she sat across from a tall man in a neatly pressed suit. Mr. Dyke's smile was perfect. Too perfect. "We were all very saddened by Tolu's death," he said smoothly. Ada studied him carefully. "Did she mention anything strange before the accident?" "Strange?" "Problems at work?" He shook his head. "Nothing like that." But Ada noticed something. For a split second, fear flashed in his eyes. Then his smile returned, and suddenly Ada understood. Tolu had been right. Something was very wrong. That evening, another voice note arrived. Ada's hands trembled as she pressed play. This one was different. Tolu sounded terrified. "Ada, if they find my phone, I'm finished." A car engine roared somewhere nearby. They're moving something through the company shipments. Something illegal. Ada felt a chill spread through her chest. "I saw the containers." A door slammed. Voices shouted in the distance. Then Tolu whispered the final words Ada would ever hear from her. "If I don't make it, expose them." The message cut off. Silence filled the room. Ada sat there for a long time. Her fear had turned into something else now. Determination, because her best friend had died trying to reveal the truth. And now that truth belonged to her. But Ada didn't know something. As she sat in her apartment replaying the recording, a black SUV was parked across the street, and inside it, 2 men watched her window. One of them spoke quietly. "She got the messages." The other nodded. "Then we handle it tonight." Ada didn't notice the black SUV across the street. From her apartment window, Lagos looked the same as always, cars honking, street vendors shouting, yellow buses pushing their way through traffic like stubborn animals. But inside the SUV, the 2 men had been sitting there for nearly an hour. The older one leaned back in his seat, watching Ada's apartment window through dark sunglasses. "She's been replaying the voice note," he said calmly. The younger man frowned. "How do you know?" "Because people always do." He tapped the steering wheel thoughtfully. "If Tolu sent those messages, she trusted this girl." The younger man glanced toward the building. "So what do we do?" The older man's voice was quiet. "We make sure the messages never reach anyone else." Ada was still sitting on her bed when her phone rang. Unknown number. Normally she would ignore it, but something told her to answer. "Hello?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then a man's voice spoke. Low. Cold. "You should stop asking questions about Tolu." Ada's body went rigid. "Who is this?" "Someone who's trying to help you stay alive." Her heart pounded. "What happened to her?" The man didn't answer immediately. Then he said something that made Ada's stomach twist. She died because she didn't mind her business. The call ended. Ada stared at the phone. Fear crawled slowly through her chest. They knew she was investigating. But instead of stopping, Ada felt something else rising inside her. Anger. Tolu had trusted her. She wasn't going to run away now. The next evening, Ada drove toward a port. The voice notes had mentioned containers. Westcore Logistics handled shipping. If something illegal was happening, it had to be happening now. The port was massive, rows of towering containers stretched endlessly under bright floodlights. Trucks moved constantly. Security guards walked around lazily. Ada parked a few streets away and approached the storage yard on foot. Her heart pounded louder with every step. Then she saw it. A container with the Westcore logo. The doors weren't fully closed. Ada slipped inside. At first, she thought the container was empty. Then she saw the crates. Dozens of them, each one sealed. She opened one slowly. Inside were small black boxes. Medical equipment maybe. But something felt wrong. Ada opened another crate. This time she froze. Inside were stacks of unregistered passports. Hundreds of them. Blank. Ready for new identities. Human trafficking. Her stomach twisted. Suddenly a voice spoke behind her. You really shouldn't have come here. Ada turned slowly. 3 men stood at the container entrance. One of them was Mr. Dyke, the operations manager. His smile was gone now. Mr. Dyke stepped forward slowly. You were always Tolu's closest friend. Ada's hands trembled. What did you do to her? He sighed. She was smart, too smart. He nodded toward the crates. She discovered the shipments. Ada's voice shook. So you killed her? Mr. Dyke's expression hardened. It was never supposed to be messy. He gestured to the men beside him. Take her phone. 2 of them grabbed Ada. She struggled desperately, but they were stronger. One of them snatched her phone from her hand. Mr. Dyke scrolled through it. Then he smiled. There they are, the voice notes. He looked up at her. You should have deleted these. Ada's heart sank. It was over. Then suddenly, police sirens exploded across the port. Blue lights flashed everywhere. The men froze. Mr. Dyke's eyes widened. What the hell? Police vehicles surrounded the storage yard. Armed officers rushed forward. Everyone hands up. Chaos erupted. The men ran, but there was nowhere to go. Within minutes, they were all on the ground in handcuffs. Ada stood frozen. A police officer approached her. You're Ada, right? She nodded slowly. How do you know my name? The officer smiled slightly. Because someone sent us the evidence. Ada frowned. What evidence? The officer held up a phone. Her phone. With the voice notes. Ada blinked. That they just took it. Then she realized. Her hands trembled again. Earlier that evening, before leaving her apartment, she had emailed the recordings to a journalist friend, just in case. 2 weeks later, Ada sat in her living room watching the news. Westcore Logistics had been exposed. The human trafficking ring had been shut down. Several executives were in custody, and Mr. Dyke was facing life in prison. But the victory didn't feel complete, because Tolu was still gone. Ada picked up her phone slowly. She opened the voice notes again. There was one she hadn't played in days. The very first one. She pressed play. Tolu's voice filled the room. Soft, scared, but determined. Ada, if you're hearing this, something has already happened to me. Ada closed her eyes. Her friend had known. She had known she might not survive, that she had sent the truth anyway. Ada whispered quietly, I did it, Tolu. Outside, Lagos moved on like it always did. But But somewhere, justice had finally caught up with them. People who thought they would never be exposed, and all because of a voice note that was never supposed to be heard. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. By doing this, you tell YouTube algorithm that you enjoyed it. Then YouTube pushes it further to more audience. This is the only way you can support our channel. Thank you as you do so.